big news.
I'm listening. What do you got?
Critics and parents agree. Paw Patrol, the mighty movie, is hilarious, action-packed, and fun for the whole family.
How do you like me now? That's what I'm talking about.
Paw Patrol, the mighty movie, rated PG, now streaming on Paramount+.
Level up your listening with Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra earbuds and headphones with immersive sound and world-class noise cancellation for a not-so-silent night. Visit Bose.com/Spotify to shop sound that's more than a present.
Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, Bruce Dickinson here from Iron Maiden. Yes, indeed, Miss Whiplash herself, Mrs. Carrie, is here to unchain your brain.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie. Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 182 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. And before we get to this week's guest, Lawrence Gowan from Styx, I want to let you know about the stocking stuffer sale happening in the shop at mistresscarrie.com. You can get great deals on t-shirts, guitar picks, coffee mugs, holiday ornaments, mouse pads, stickers, and so much more. What do you get the person that has everything? A little Mistress Carrie under the tree, of course. Just log on to mistresscarrie.com and click shop. My guest this week is Lawrence Gowan, the keyboardist from Styx. He's also a vocalist and a solo artist with his project Gowan. I caught up with Lawrence while he was out on the road with Styx in his hotel room getting ready to go vinyl shopping. He and I talked about the band's latest album, Crash of the Crown, and their Las Vegas residency dates in 2024. We bonded over our shared love of purple hair dye and jukeboxes and the Beatles, and we also talked about South Park and Abbey Road Studios, what he likes to do when he's in Boston, and of course, we talked a little hockey. The list of hits from Styx is undeniable, and I was so excited to have Lawrence on the show. Or Larry, or Gowan. Depending on the band he's playing with, that determines the name. But he was an absolute blast, and I 100% owe him the Mistress Carrie Tour of Boston. So, allow me to introduce you to Lawrence Gowan from Styx.
Record immediately.
Immediately hit record.
Hit record, Mistress Carrie.
Can I call you Larry, Lawrence, Mr. Gowan? What do you prefer?
Boy, so I answer to many names. In Styx, they always call me Lawrence. Guys I play hockey with always called me Larry. And my solo career, I'm known as Gowan. So I'm going to give you, it's a multiple choice.
Well, you are my purple-haired brethren. I will call you that.
That's a very good thing to call me. Yes, indeed. And it's funny, you said, you mentioned that you've been doing this for 30 years. I remember I actually started doing stuff like this to my hair in 1976, if you can believe it. I was 19. And it's funny because a few years back, I was doing a TV show, just maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I can't remember what I had, green and purple at the time. And, you get some comments on the internet, people have something vital they need to tell you.
When are you going to grow up?
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. It was somebody possibly half my age or even less said, "What's with the green and purple? Are you trying to look edgy?" And I thought, I was doing this when your grandparents were children.
It's called OG status. My hair has been purple since my 18th birthday because I was threatened by my mother.
Oh my God.
And so I dyed it on my 18th birthday, and now my own mother wouldn't even recognize without it. So
yes, that's good. That's very funny you say that, because there was a brief period in the early 90s where I stopped doing it. And yeah, it was my dad actually said, "What have you done to the color in your hair?" I said, "Irish." And I said, "Well, nothing." He said, "Well, put it back the way it was." Yeah.
Normally, the first thing that I ask any artist that comes on the show, because you guys travel so much, is where they are. And sometimes they don't even know. Do you know where you are?
Well, obviously, I'm trapped in the 1800s here by the look of this. I'm in, and I'm hoping you could bring me back to the year 2023. We are in Utah today, and we're in, connected through Salt Lake City. We're in a place called St. George, Utah. Now, I know we played here about 20 years ago, beautiful venue that we're playing tonight and tomorrow night. But I just went out just before calling you, I went out for a quick walk. I like to walk the town. And I just walked through. Do you know who Brigham Young is?
Yeah.
He was one of the founders of the Mormon church. And I'd just seen Book of Mormon. Actually, no, I saw it right before 2020, I think 2019. And so I enjoyed it. It was a great tour. And of course, it's an authentic house from 1870s. Pretty amazing to see, box square piano and stuff I'm interested in, because it's always a curiosity. But the whole time in my head, the South Park songs are like blaring away. And I'm like, don't sing that now.
Well, South Park has covered you guys too.
And very well, I might add. Yes.
Is that something that you do every tour stop, is that you like to go out and explore the city? Because musicians are the most well-traveled people I know.
Yes, I'm extremely well-traveled. I consider myself well-traveled. And wow, as I'm looking at this bed now behind me, it's very metal looking.
It looks like a nice hotel they put you in.
It's absolutely beautiful. This was the only shot I could think of, because I've got a light there, so I thought I'd use that. Great hotel, beautiful town. Yeah, beautiful town, and I love doing that. So as far as being well traveled, I usually do a little, Instagram story every day where I walk around and record little moments, little nuggets, and put those up. And people tend to enjoy them. It's like getting to travel. We've only played in America this past year, but they get a little, just a brief little kind of goofy travel log as I find various curious things along the way.
Is there something you look for in every city? A record store? Do you go to historic sites?
Now that's what a great question. There's a vinyl record right after we get off the phone here, or when we stop our Zooming. I'm going to go up the street there. There's a vinyl record store that looks very cool. And I think it was called Rock Records or Rock Vinyl, something rock. And so they're my kind of peeps. So I'm going to go in there. But what I look for, Carrie, is, or should I call you Mistress Carrie?
No, Carrie's good. Yeah.
What I look for is 78 RPMs, because I have a Wurlitzer, 1946 Wurlitzer jukebox that only plays 78 RPM records. And the early rock and roll records, up until around roughly the late 1959, early 1960, were all 78 RPM before the 45 took over. So I've got lots of old, the Platters and, Little Richard and lots of the Elvis stuff. So I look for those,
I have a jukebox from the 60s that I inherited from my parents, and it's got 45s in it. Yeah. And I need to find someone that can fix it, because it needs some maintenance work, and that's hard.
So I'm going to send you a website of the best expert ever. He's in Albany, New York. He restored our Wurlitzer, and company's not springing to mind, but I'll send it through I'll send you the address to after this. Oh shoot, I should know it. It's called Vintage. Oh dear, I don't want to get it wrong. Anyway,
I'll link it in the show notes.
excellent. In fact, they've been on their Facebooky thing. Sorry, I can't turn off these stupid notifications. On their Facebooky thing, they've got they have my actual jukebox on there after they'd restored it. I'll send you a link to that.
Yeah, because they're in Albany. That's not far from me.
I just remembered National Jukebox. That's what they're called. National Jukebox. I should have remembered that. And John Papa is just the best.
Yeah, I definitely want to get it put back the way it should be so that I can use it more often because it's awesome.
You know what, Carrie? It is awesome. It's astounding because it actually is a physical time machine in that you're listening to those records as they were originally, as people of that era actually heard them. You see what I mean? Like there's something about, the music that's made today, a lot of it sounds very acceptable and very good on a laptop because it was made on a laptop, and it may have been actually mastered to fit that, to fit that medium. Whereas, songs that were done in the 40s, 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s were done for jukeboxes that were on 78 RPM. And then rock records began to, play with the grooves of 45s and then, of course, 33 RPM LPs. But yeah, you're actually hearing the record in the most authentic way you can, and really is enjoyable. There's another level of enjoyment to that, I find.
It's like a time capsule of my childhood because it's got everything from like the Beatles, who are my favorite band, my mom's favorite band, all the way up through like Huey Lewis, which is like when my parents stopped buying the 45s or couldn't find them as easily.
No, you couldn't. And so, yeah. And we're talking on a very auspicious day, actually, because the final ever Beatles song is released today, now and then. So I'm looking forward to hearing that, which I will.
Did you watch that short film about the technology to bring the music back?
I've only watched just what they've put on like Instagram the last few days. I've been watching that. I haven't gone through that. I know I am going to watch that. Much as the same as when they did Free as a Bird way back in the 90s. Oh my God.
I watched it last night. It's unbelievable. It's only like 12 minutes long. But the fact that all four Beatles are represented on this song, that they had George Harrison guitar tracks from the 90s, it's really remarkable.
Oh, it's great. Who produced it? Is it Jeff Lynne again, or who
Jeff Lynne and is it Gilles? Is that how you say?
Oh, Gilles Martin.
Gilles Martin. Yeah, Gilles Martin helped with the string orchestration and.
There's the ace combo right there.
Exactly.
You couldn't go to higher authorities on how to make a Beatle record sound like the Beatle record unless you had all four Beatles, which they do.
Yeah. So they didn't even tell the string section what they were recording for. They told them they were recording just for a McCartney track. But they had no idea that they were actually recording the last Beatles song. It's crazy.
That's really remarkable. I mean, look. Everything about that story from beginning to end is remarkable. It's in our lifetime or in our era of being on the planet. It's, to my mind, it's the greatest story that exists. I don't think there's a day goes by that I don't, in some way, even in the most tertiary way, reference that story to some degree. It's just remarkable, and it just goes to show the intensity of connection that we have to Beatle music, and then all the music that ensued after that and before it, because they really were tremendous conduits, or the music that passed through them, that preceded them. They always pointed that out, what it was that, how Paul had the British Music Hall influences in there and things from his dad, and the fact that Ringo was such an accomplished drummer with other bands prior to, coming into it, and that George was one of the earliest real true guitar aficionados who loved, Carl Perkins and people of that era, who I got to play with actually one night, and the fact that John Lennon, taking music from his mom's kind of sense of humor and way of approaching a banjo, all of that, just it's a mythical but true story that unfolded, as I say, in my own lifetime.
Did you watch that Rick Rubin thing that Paul McCartney did?
I did.
That made me listen to the Beatles totally differently, because I had never, I say that Beatles music is the greatest gift my mother ever gave to me, because that's kind of the soundtrack to my childhood. And to hear Paul McCartney describe how his happy childhood and John Lennon's unhappy childhood, and the combination of either the happy lyrics and the melancholy music, or the melancholy lyrics and the happy music, that combination of Lennon and McCartney is what made it work. And it made me listen to every Beatles song differently because of that.
Yeah, that's very, very true. The just the notion that you start to hear the songs differently when you realize so many of them were written from a point of view of loss of their two mothers. And probably at a young age, they were probably trying to some degree to brush that off and not let it impede their progress. But in fact, it was probably a lot of the inspiration that drove them ahead. And they had to kind of fill in the gloom that would have brought to their lives. They had to kind of fill in their own version of sunshine to that, and they did it through music. Much the same as, and I used to make this argument way back when I would go to the conservatory, much the same as Beethoven did in his time when he was struggling against a physical impairment that would, under natural circumstances, lead someone to want to maybe end it all. Instead, he turned it into something magnificent that we still have to this day, as we will have the Lennon-McCartney songs a couple of 100 years from now, if we're still living here. Perhaps we'll be on Mars, but then I don't know.
They'll be floating around in space anyway.
Yeah. Exactly.
I have a theory about music, that there's the soundtrack to your childhood, the music you get exposed to unwillingly from parents, older siblings, your cool uncle. And then there's a moment in time where you discover something and you say, that is what I like. And your musical identity changes after that. So what was the soundtrack to your childhood? And then what was it that spearheaded your musical identity?
Okay. I've told this story before, but I remember, I was born in Scotland, right? Born in Glasgow. And my dad's from Ireland. My mom is from Scotland. And I was born in Scotland. And when I was 7 years old, in February of 1964, the Beatles were coming on Ed Sullivan, which everyone should know was the big variety show, and where you discovered acts from around the world back then on your black and white television, if you were lucky enough to get CBS. Anyway, when the Beatles were coming on, my mom said we had moved from Britain about years prior, 5 or 6 years prior, and but she'd heard from her sister that there's this great act from Liverpool that are really causing a incredible sensation there. And they're called the Beatles. And my mom said, oh, this act from Liverpool that everyone's talking about are going to be on Ed Sullivan on Sunday night. And I'm like, well, as long as Topo Gigio's on, and I'll watch it, I guess. And I remember, this is a distinct memory in my life, because I'm 7 years old, and when my parents are excited because they're British, and they're like, okay, so let's see what this act is all about, right? Apparently they do music.
You're sitting crisscross applesauce in front of the TV on the floor.
Yeah, that's exactly. And I remember it coming on, and black and white television, and I remember so All My Lovin' was the first song they did, and so Paul starts them, Ed, here they are, the Beatles, and Paul goes, close your eyes, right into that, and the movements and everything. And at 7 years old, I remember they were about 30 seconds into the song, maybe just coming up to the chorus, and my dad, who was very musical, and later on became a gigantic Beatles fan. Okay, I want to preface with that. Okay, my dad, about 30 seconds in, not ever hearing anything like this, he goes, what the hell is this? And I remember in my mind, I didn't even turn my head. because I was so locked on it. I went, I don't know what it is, but this is what I want to do, and that was the first time I drew a line in the sand, more or less, of opposition to an opinion that was expressed by my dad, who was the ultimate judge in all things up until that very moment. As I say, later on, he became a huge Beatles. He played Beatles songs on the piano himself and stuff. But initially, that first moment, you can imagine, this is a generation, my parents' generation, that were in the Second World War. He was in the Navy and for 11 years, et cetera. And what they equated as music, and like my mom, I remember her referencing and saying, "Oh my God, the audience they're acting like it's Frank Sinatra." I remember that, and I'm thinking, who? Right? At 7 years of age. But she's saying, "Oh, very much like Frank Sinatra." I'm like, yeah, whoever that is, that's insignificant. Now I'm a huge Sinatra fan, by the way. You just have to live long enough to begin to appreciate things, and I've been lucky. So anyway, it was that. I think the next bump, I know this is a very long-winded answer, but it's a great question. The next real bump for me, as far as deciding what kind of music I was very drawn to, was when progressive rock started. When I heard Yes, particularly the album Close to the Edge, and then in short order began listening to Genesis, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Jethro Tull, bands of that era, early 70s, that cemented my, Pink Floyd, that cemented my my affection for rock music that goes a little bit further than you're expecting it to. And I immediately, and to this day, I tie all those bands again to the Beatles, because they're an extension. You can pretty much take any band that exists since the Beatles to today, and I find that so many of them are an extension of one or two or three or four Beatles songs taken to another level, to another place. So, for example, I always equate Pink Floyd with, say, A Day in the Life. That sort of strummy, kind of dreamy thing that turns into something much, much larger than life, that has depths and layers of meaning that you can apply yourself or try to find out what exactly they're getting at. I'd say with Yes, the vocal things, primarily, their approach to those things, and the sharp angle turns the songs would suddenly take, where you're in a different place. Side 2 of Abbey Road, for example, doing that. I saw a lot of that in Yes and Genesis music, where these sharp angle turns, and I know they weren't just all Beatle influence. I know there was all kinds of other influences, but that degree of elevating a rock song, or what's supposed to be a pop thing that's got a transient life, elevating it to another level where it takes you on a trip, kind of like a great book can do, but beyond that, because it's tied to melody. So
it wasn't even the musical influence either, because prog rock wouldn't have been possible technically without Abbey Road Studios and the technology. Colin Blunstone from the Zombies talked about that they would know. Yeah, they wouldn't have been able to record the music they made if they hadn't gone into Abbey Road after John Lennon told the engineers, "I want an 8-track like the Beach Boys had for Pet Sounds."
That's right.
And they scrambled and gave him a 7-track. And he was like, "We just got lucky to go in after the Beatles, because then we had more tracks to work with." So the music changed.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I actually, there was so much experimenting that went on at that studio, which is why I hope it's been deemed a historic site now. I don't know if it is or not.
Did you see that documentary that Paul McCartney's daughter made about it?
I have not.
Oh, it's called If These Walls Could Sing. And it's not just about the Beatles. It's about the studio from its inception to now.
Right.
And it's amazing. So good.
I was extremely fortunate, because I got an amazing tour of Abbey Road, very quick one night I was there with Jerry Marotta, the drummer who played on a number of my albums and produced one. And Jerry was the drummer from Peter Gabriel, and he played on my solo records. And Jerry was doing some work with Tears for Fears. They were working at Abbey Road. And I got to go in one night when he was working with them. A year later, I'd wind up opening shows for Tears for Fears. But anyway, when I was there, Alan Parsons was in Studio B, or Studio 2, the Beatles studio. And we popped our heads in there. And Alan, he was just mixing some stuff. And we said, hey, can we go down on the floor and check it? Go, yeah, go ahead. So I went down onto the floor and was able to play through all the instruments that were there. And this is the Lady Madonna piano, and this is the, so I've really got an incredibly thorough tour of that studio. And in fact, the next day, I'll blow your mind here. The next day because I was recording at Ringo Starr's home, Tittenhurst Park. So I was able to tell him the next day that I got to go through Abbey Road and see where you recorded all that stuff. And he's like, oh, very nice. Yeah.
I told Colin that I signed the wall out front and that I was one of the idiots that dodged the traffic so that I could get the picture in the crosswalk.
Yeah, there's lots of those idiots, and I count myself among those idiots. And yes, it's required. It's a pilgrimage.
Yeah. There's actually a webcam that you can sign on and watch 24 hours a day, the crosswalk.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know people there get kind of irritated by it all, but tough.
You moved there most likely. It's like in Boston, the USS Constitution, Old Ironsides. That is in the Charlestown Navy Yard. And all around there now are these super expensive condos. And the people buy those condos and then complain about the cannon noise that they fire off this old historic warship every day. And it's like, tough. You moved there.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
If you live in St. John's Wood in London, be prepared to stop frequently.
Yeah, exactly. You said a couple things about your dad that I wanted to go back to because there seems to be this unbelievable trend for rock stars to come from veteran families.
I've noticed that too. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
We really wanted to avoid military service. I could be. I don't know. It's funny because I look at my life now and I go, I kind of think I would have liked to be in the Navy, but it's nothing like the job I ended up with. So, but there's, you never know what's up the road. I do notice that. I think, well, first of all, let's probably in very practical terms, let's just say, since most of the generation of baby boom musicians, and I'm at the tail end of that, would have come from families where military background was probably in it because of the Second World War. So there'd be a lot of American, Canadian, and obviously British people whose parents would have been that. And quite honestly, I guess the other side too, a lot of Germans. I'll bet, I've never looked into it, but I have a feeling that perhaps Kraftwerk came from families that were, we won't go any deeper into that. Anyway, I just think that there's probably a lot to that.
I wonder if it's a work ethic thing. I wonder if it has something to do with the discipline required to get really good at musical craft. Like if those lessons were passed down.
That's a very astute observation because yes, quite frankly, this is probably a similar story. Quite frankly, I know that basically making it in music, let's call it that, somehow making a living at it, etc., there was a military discipline, as you just put it perfectly, that went into it. I knew that you have to put the hours in. You can't shirk this off and go and dabble in other things because you don't have time for that because the competition is too great for other people that want to do it. So and also by a certain age, our parents were very, they weren't helicopter parents. I don't mean that because that's our generation. They were just strict. Let's get down to that. They were strict in their expectations of you not to screw up. no matter what you did, whether you were going to go and become a doctor or a rock musician or a hockey player, growing up in Toronto, their expectations of you and their demands on you showing the initiative and drive and determination to see it through. I think that comes from that mindset. Now, and I've never thought of it that way until you just pointed that out. I think that's part of it, is that was ingrained in us, as was, it's like when I tell younger people today that, for example, physical or corporal or whatever you want to call it, discipline was, to our parents' generation, was pretty much mandatory. There weren't any, I don't remember any families around on our street that didn't reprimand their kids and sometimes physically give them a smack.
Sometimes people would beat other people's kids.
That's absolutely true. I'm glad you said it, not me. Yes. Someone might come over and grab you by the ear. I do remember that. And yeah, things that I would never dream.
Things that would get you arrested today.
Oh, arrested. Oh my God. You'd be arrested. That's just the beginning.
Yeah.
The whole cancel thing would then kick in, and then you'd be shunned forever.
Exactly.
And probably burned at the stake. I should imagine that's probably coming back pretty soon. And
well, I'm not far from Salem, so.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Well,
yeah,
you had that a couple nights ago, I guess.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that's probably part of the drive. We had a strong drive to want to prove to our parents that it was achievable.
You said your dad played piano. Does musical ability run in the family?
Yeah, he's Irish. If you ever go to Ireland, you're going to see musicians playing out on the street who are probably better than pros that you've seen here many times. And so many of them could be professional musicians, but they may not be inclined to want to go through the rigors of the music industry. Yes, he was very, very musically gifted. He could play anything. And my mom was a really good singer. And so, yeah, it was in our background. That's another British tradition that I know existed. Everyone had to have a party piece, they called it back then. They didn't have to do the quotation thing I just did. They just had to have a party piece. So everyone could perform something to some degree. And I think that was kind of ingrained in us as well. My
sister and I we started during COVID, the genealogy thing of trying to find where our family came from. Yeah. And my mom and dad's sides of the family were completely different. And we found out that my great-great-grandparents immigrated from Cork. I didn't even know I was Irish. Yeah. Oh, well, the purple hair gives you away. Yeah, that's the Irish English side of the family. And then my dad's side is where I get my temper and attitude, the Sicilian and Portuguese Azorean side of the family. So I'm quite the American mutt. I'm scared of you. You should be. I want to talk about Vegas and this residency because you guys have so many dates you've already played and more dates coming in 2024. Is Vegas a place that you enjoy being? Because it seems like touring after a while would be difficult, even though you love to travel. And the idea of the audience coming to you versus you going to the audience is kind of cool. Is it ever? Yes. It reminds me, as a young musician, when you're growing up, you're playing in small clubs to maybe 100 people or less, or a couple of hundred on a great night. And you're just dreaming of playing to a few thousand people a night. And I love that. And once that's achieved, if you're lucky enough to get to there, you think, well, this is it, right? And then suddenly this little thing starts to gnaw at you where you think, there's something about playing a smaller venue where there's this concussive, compact feeling and rock music is very conducive to that. And the theater that we play in, the Venetian, holds about 2,000 people, right? So it doesn't have that, but what it has is the residency, basically coming downstairs from your hotel room and to the stage that afternoon. It reminds me of playing clubs
where they'd book us for a week or 2 weeks, and we'd be staying in my case, I'd be staying somewhere up in Canada, in northern Ontario or Quebec, and you'd just be staying in these usually pretty horrid rooms upstairs from the club, but it was fantastic because this was like your venue and people would come to it every night. And I feel that when we're in Las Vegas on an incredibly elevated degree. So I really enjoy it. I also enjoy being in the town anyway, because it's exciting and it's run by rock music. It's music kind of runs the town. So I'm drawn to that right off the bat. It's exciting, and it's nothing like when I started in the 70s, the late 70s. Vegas was considered a place for Rat Pack style acts. Let's put it that way. Elvis was the only real rock act that would play there consistently. And but from there, I mean, in the 25 years I've been in Styx, it has been an absolute rock mecca. It really is. You walk up and down that strip and you can see everything. And every band in the world plays there. And then once you've done that, you can go and see Love.
Oh, which is so good. So good. When it comes to Vegas, are you a gambling guy? What's your game?
No, we have gambling guys in our circle, but no, I'm not. I consider it that my payoff has already come, because I got to do what I wanted to do all my life. So I don't want to push my luck any further and have the gods say, I think you've had enough.
Yeah.
Okay, back off. No, I'm not. But it's something I like to observe. I love when guys with us, when they win big and come in bragging in about how much they made, I'm always really happy for them. I love the atmosphere, though. I love the freedom of the whole atmosphere.
I always ask songwriters on the show this question. It's not a favorite song question. It's definitely about the craft of songwriting, because I'm so envious of it and I can't do it. I've tried, failed miserably. Is there a song from any artist, any genre of music, that's inconsequential, that you think is a perfect example of the craft of songwriting? Like a song that's so well written you wish you wrote it?
Oh, yeah. I can give you thousands of those. Yes. I mean, look, Styx songs are incredibly well written. The songs that were written before I joined the band, being inside them and learning them and playing them night after night, I realize why they're so effective with people. The songs that we've written in our most recent records, and I should mention that, I mean, Crash of the Crown, our most recent album, and it got to #1 on the Billboard Rock Album chart. That album, the songwriting on that between us is really rewarding when we come up with something that's a group effort that somehow gels together into a statement. There's something, it's very difficult. I'm going to tell you, it's not that you can't write a song, it's just you haven't pushed long enough and hard enough to have finally eke something out that you go, oh, that's not terrible. And then the next day you listen to it and go, that's a lot less than terrible. I think that's actually good enough that I might play it for someone. I think everyone has that ability to some degree. It's like writing a story, but it can be painful to get there. Off the top of my head, I can think of songs that Freddie Mercury wrote, for example. I would say, there's the obvious, but I'd quickly follow, say, Somebody to Love. There's one that I would love to have written. The Rolling Stones, Sympathy for the Devil. There's another one. With
That's
Genesis.
my favorite Stone song.
Oh, yeah. With Genesis, I would say something like Firth of Fifth is one of my absolute favorite pieces of music. I don't know if you know them as well. I can keep going. I mean, even in just Radiohead songs, Paranoid Android, I would love to have written that. These are incredibly well-written songs. Or Creep is another incredibly well-written song. Elton John, Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding. Would love to have written that. These are so meticulously well-crafted songs that you you stand in awe of them. And if you can come up with something that you really just want to come up with something that connects to people on that kind of a level, that just gives them a lift or somehow connects to their life in a way that's meaningful.
The Elton John, Bernie Taupin songwriting team, the concept of that comes up a lot on the show with songwriters because it's so weird. I've never heard of anybody else that writes songs the way that they do. And now Bernie getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on his own accord is pretty awesome.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, those are lyrics that we can quote almost daily. They're fantastic lyrics that he is the other half of that coin. And Elton John's always said that, or words to that effect, I guess. But as we're saying this, I'm thinking, I'll give you another example. Life on Mars, David Bowie. That is such a well-crafted piece of music, to my mind. I can keep going.
You talk about Life on Mars.
Recent things as well. I would say Somewhere Only We Know by Keane. I don't want to take those ones out. There's a couple of songs by Royal Blood I wish I'd written. There's one I just heard by Tame Impala that I think was tremendous. Anyway, yeah.
You bring up Bowie and Radiohead and obviously Crash of the Crown. Were you always fascinated by space as a kid?
Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. I mean, I remember the moon landing. I remember John Glenn, orbiting the Earth. My mom was always very watchful of that. She was very on top of it and kind of would bring up every space mission. And now, as again, part of the reason I don't gamble and push my luck is I've had phenomenal tours of NASA over the years. I got a couple of very good friends there that have given me inside tours where I've gotten to touch and do things that most people don't get a chance to ever do. All short of actually going into space myself.
Would you do it?
I'm enough of a space cadet. What?
Would you do it if you got the opportunity to go into space? Because they're sending people up there now.
I probably wouldn't say no.
Just a matter of who pays for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If Elon wants to put me on one of his one of those things, once he's tested it out several times, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I know that you grew up in the Toronto area and you are a hockey player yourself. Being here in Boston, I gotta talk to you about hockey and talk about this season and let me know how you're feeling.
Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit. I want to now that you bring that up, and it wasn't expecting this. Someone recently sent me a picture of from my hockey playing days that I was really happy to see again. I don't play now anymore. I've had a couple of knee surgeries. I don't want to push my luck.
I'd be afraid to hurt a finger for you.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. I can't go to the guys in Styx and say, hey, I'm going to have to miss the next week because I got body checked a little too hard by a guy. And so I can't really get away with that anymore. Yeah, I used to play 2-3 times a week, pretty much up until I joined Styx. I played a few times after I joined the band. But as far as hockey goes, first of all, there's one thing I'm going to kind of champion before we talk about any NHL things, and that is the World Junior Tournament. I don't know if you see that enough of that in the United States. That's to me is maybe the greatest hockey every single year. It happens between Christmas and New Year, and it is phenomenal hockey. You're basically seeing the greatest in the world from 16 to 19 years of age play for their countries and play with the most, to my observation, the purest of intent, if you know what I mean. They're not paid athletes yet. They are still just, they're at the peak of their abilities, in love with that game. And I kind of love that. Next to that, the NHL playoffs are always a phenomenal thing. I'm going to assume that you're a Boston Bruins fan.
Of course.
Anyway, so
when you grow up, you grow up a fan of what you love, what's around you. It's not my fault.
I would need to explain yourself. Mistress Carrie, it's okay.
The Big Bad Bruins, baby. Come on.
I understand it perfectly. In fact, our production manager, Brian Long, is from Boston, and he's a gigantic Bruins fan. And in my I wish I could show you this. In my wardrobe case, he plasters this picture that I can't take off because he keeps putting it back up, and it's a guy in a Bruins shirt going like, I think the expression is to all you non-Bruin fans out there.
Yeah.
And he's like
double birds, baby, double birds.
My double birds. I'll try to ingratiate myself a tiny bit to your ilk.
To your ilk. Bostonians, I'll just put it out there. We're very aware that we're a bit much.
Oh, no, you're not. You're the fantastic fans to play for it. In a concert, I love going to Boston. I love walking around Beacon Hill. I love walking around in Boston. Like, it's one of the greatest walking cities in the world. And I've been down to I guess it's now called the TD Center, I guess.
Yeah, the TD Garden,
TD Garden, where the next to where the Boston Garden used to be, and near the statue of Bobby Orr doing the dive, the midair dive. And I have, even prior to them putting that up there, I would go, when I first joined Styx, but prior to them putting that statue there, I can't remember what year that was, but I made a video of myself doing the flying through the air thing by lying on the hood of a car that was parked next to it. just so you know. So yeah, I have the disease in me quite badly. I've not only have I met Bobby Orr, but I used to do his he did a charity skate in Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto every year, and I would participate in that. And I've actually did a show once where he was on the bill. There was a thing in Ottawa, Canada, where we were both on the bill for this television show. That was phenomenal. The issue for me is that, I grew up in Toronto, and I'm a Leaf fan, and the Boston-Toronto rivalry has been such a great thing to witness over the years.
Why I asked you the question.
Yeah, but the Boston-Montreal rivalry was also very, very top-notch as well. But more and more, as I get older, I honestly have more of a, although I'm technically a Leaf fan, I'm more a fan of the game. I mean, and since the Leafs tend to get knocked out of the playoffs fairly early, maybe not this year, I tend to kind of champion another team, So, who knows? One day that may be the Bruins. Who knows? And you do have a very cool sweater, or jersey, as you call it in the United States. So there's that.
We're looking pretty good this year. I'm hoping last year's failure, that one left a scar, but we're hoping this year is going to be better.
Well, no one expected Florida to do what they did.
Especially after the regular season record of the Bruins. It was like, what?
It seemed, I felt very bad for Bergeron leaving the ice, I have to say.
Yeah.
Because such a great player. I did feel bad for him. But this is the thing about the Stanley Cup playoffs and why I love it so much is nothing is a done deal. There are so many factors. That's why they call it the hardest trophy in sports to win. I mean, how the hell you equate that, I don't know. But let's just say it is. It's the best trophy to win, no question.
Champagne tastes really good out of the Stanley Cup.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, and I've done it.
Me too.
Yeah, but you probably did it because you won. I did it because I got into the Hockey Hall of Fame and had a friend there.
Well, the next time that Styx is in Boston, I will take you on the Mistress Carrie tour of Boston.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yeah, we'll walk around during the day. My brain is filled with weird Boston trivia that I would be happy to share with you.
I've done the duck tours.
Which is great. The Freedom Trail you can do.
Mistress Carrie tour sounds great. I do love Boston Common is one of my favorite spots, and the park across the street, the name of which I forget all the time. But anyway. Yeah.
Oh, the gardens and the Common.
Yeah.
Yeah, the public gardens and the Boston Common. Yeah.
Oh, the public gardens. Yeah, that's beautiful. And Boston Common is also great. You meet all kinds of interesting people there for sure.
Yeah. Well, it was so nice to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Good luck with your vinyl hunting today.
Thank you very much. And come and see Styx, because you will not be disappointed in the epic rock show that this band puts on night after night after night. You will not be disappointed.
It's something that needs to be experienced live. You can listen to Styx records with headphones and it sounds amazing, but hearing the harmonies and all of that on stage, like if you've never seen Styx live, like you have to see you guys live at least once in your life.
Without hesitation, I tell people, if you do come to the show, you're going to love it. Before I even joined the band, because I did a couple of shows with them, I thought they were absolutely great. So there's nothing like a great live rock show. To me, that's the highest form of entertainment, even above a great hockey game, quite honestly. And it just stays with you, So a great Styx show should be in your future, all you Zoom watchers.
Well, it's also one of those things where you go to the show thinking you know some of the songs, and then you realize, oh my God, I love this song too. Oh my God, I love this song.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's exactly what happens. And yeah, it's always a great adventure. I just went and saw Peter Gabriel last week, and he played half the show, was maybe more than half, was all new things, and just fantastic. Just as great as when I saw him 40 plus years ago for the first time. And yeah, there's nothing like it. It just
People ask me, like, what's the best concert I've ever been to? And I always say
next to
Styx is Woodstock 94, and Peter Gabriel closed it out.
Did he?
And it was Used to Endure came out, it finally stopped raining. There's 500,000 people, and Peter Gabriel just, it was magic.
Well, on all my solo records, a great guy from the Boston area, Tony Levin, is on the Gowan solo records, and I still see him occasionally. And he's been with Peter Gabriel ever since 1976. So Boston does have a great tie to the Gabriel legacy as well.
To talk about amazing songwriting too. Like, there's another example of
top of the mark. I mean, sure. I mean, you talk about great songwriting. I would say Family Snapshot would be right in there, and Salisbury Hill, of course. I mean, I'm picking the obvious one, but there's just two, phenomenally well written songs that he's done. In Your Eyes. Oh, just it was great.
Oh, there isn't a girl in the world that doesn't love that song. Oh, to have a song like that written about you.
I'm one of those girls. Did I just get canceled?
No.
Damn.
No. Thank you so much. It was so great to talk to you today. I really appreciate your time.
All right, Mistress Carrie.
Go Bruins!
Yeah, go.
Bye. Thank you.
Cheers.
There he is, the one and only Lawrence Gowan from Styx. Their album, Crash of the Crown, is available everywhere. And the band is hitting the road again in 2024, including their residency in Las Vegas at the Venetian Theater. If you want more details on Styx or Lawrence, you can find all of the band's links and Lawrence's social links in the show notes of this podcast. That's also where you'll find the link to this episode's corresponding playlist. I make a playlist for every full-length episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast that features all of my guest music and all the artists and songs that we talked about in the interview. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast. New full-length episodes come out every Wednesday, plus every weekday you get the sit rep. All of your rock news, music headlines, and entertainment updates boiled down to about 5 minutes. And you never know when we're going to release a bonus episode. You can find me live every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern on my official Facebook page from my video show, Cocktails in the War Room. And I'm always on the radio on The Mistress Carrie Show. Get the details on all that and more, including the stocking stuffer sale, online at mistresscarrie.com. The Mistress Carrie podcast, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Trying to grab all the groceries in one trip? Oof, not how you would have done that. You know sometimes less is more. Like when you drive less and save with the USAA annual mileage discount. USAA. Get a quote today.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.